So there's always talk about raising the minimum wage, and a lot of states have taken upon themselves to raise their own minimum wages to be something substantially more than what the federal minimum wage is. You got like extremities like California that are at what, $20 an hour now, and you have some other states like Connecticut. They're in January they're going to be at like what, 16.35 an hour or something ridiculous. And yeah, so there's a lot of states that do their own thing that's pretty high. There's some that do their own thing that's a little more moderate. Some states are around $11 still. And then obviously there's the federal minimum wage, which is terrible. It's what, 7.25 an hour or something like that. Is the 7.25 or 7.65, whatever it is. It's pretty dang low. And yeah, so there's a lot of talk about raising it, especially the federal level. And Kamala, that's her new thing to talk about. Oh, I'm gonna go and tackle this because families need to be able to survive and thrive and provide for their family and blah 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 blah. Here's the thing though. I have always been against raising minimum wage to extreme levels like it is in a lot of places now. I understand it should increase over time to stay with the flow of things with inflation. I'm not saying minimum wage should still be $1 an hour like it was back in the 40s or whatever, but I also think $20 an hour like California is doing is absolutely insane. Even Connecticut, 16.35 or something is ridiculous. Like maybe $12 an hour is fair. 11. This 16 stuff is ridiculous, and other states being high like that as well is ridiculous. But at the same time, yeah, 7.65 is pretty pathetic. But there's a bunch of reasons why I am against it. So one, I look at it like this. First off, a minimum wage job typically, like majority of the time, is a unskilled, first off, just unskilled job that anybody can pick up. It's like you get trained for a day or two, and then you're out on the floor, and by the end of your first week, you're an expert just like everyone else who's been there for years. Like, it's that easy to pick up and learn. So as such, you don't really hold value to the company. You know what I mean? You don't have any bargaining say to be like, well, I've been here for 2 months and I think I should make this. It's like, why? Everyone else is doing the same thing you are. And so if you're that much of a problem, they can just can you and find 2, 3, 4 new people to replace you in a day. It's not like a skilled job where you're invaluable. You can't just leave the company. They need you. You do this for them, this, whatever you do. And they know, A, it'll either be very hard to find somebody to match your abilities, or B, they just don't want to lose you because they don't want another company to have you. They like having you, and so they'll do whatever is needed to make you stay. Whether that's give you more vacation time, give you a company car, give you that raise that you're asking for. But when it comes to minimum wage jobs, you don't have that. And it's for reasons, because again, these jobs are easy. I mean, the second thing is a lot of these jobs are just starter jobs. It's a job that a high schooler might take. I mean, from what I understand from the Bureau of Labor statistics, the majority of minimum wage workers are age 25 and under, which when you break that down, that's high school and college students that are working. So 25, then they graduate, they go and get into their field, and they're no longer at a minimum wage job. And if they are, it's like a side hustle. You know, they're making a few extra bucks a week to help pay off their loans or whatever. But it's not, those type of jobs aren't meant to be long term. You know what I mean? It's just like your first relationship. Stereotypically, it's not meant to be long term. It's meant to be like your starter girlfriend or boyfriend, kind of get the kinks out of a relationship, and then you find somebody that you might have forever. Very rarely is the first one the one that's forever. Like, oh, that's my high school sweetheart. Oh, wow. It's weird that actually worked out. So just like that. It's not like, oh, I got my job at McDonald's when I was 16 and I'm going to work there forever. Second reason, I know there's a couple reasons there, but that's under the first umbrella. So the second reason that I think is kind of more, I feel like the whole idea is a lot of people want to be just like lazy. Like they think they're going to work one job like at McDonald's. Oh, I'm going to survive just fine off of this. And it's like, no, you got to be realistic. You have an unskilled job that anybody can do. Kids are doing it. Literally, kids, 16-year-olds in high school are working your job. If you're 40 or older and you're still doing that, that's your problem. So if you need more money, then there's a few avenues that you should take or should have taken. A is get a second job then. you're working at a place that doesn't pay much, and you know it's never going to pay that much more. It's not like you're going to be making $50 an hour, making fries at McDonald's. Like, it's not going to happen. So get a second job then. Supplement your income. I mean, let's put it this way. One, there was a couple that I used to work with when I worked at McDonald's. And they had 2 kids. Their kids were kind of teenagers, but still. They had 2 kids, and they both worked 2 jobs, full-time. So they were both working 80 hours between 2 jobs, 2 minimum wage jobs each. One of them was McDonald's together. And I estimated that probably take home between other jobs, they were getting like $1,200 a week. $300 per job times 4 jobs, basically, $1,200 take home. This was over a decade ago now that I knew these people. Well over a decade, actually, probably. What are we now, 2024? So 2014. Yeah, I probably knew them in like 2010. So, inflation wasn't what it is nowadays and all that. So $1,200 a week was good in 2010. It's almost okay now, actually, even. So, it would have been really good then. And, yeah, so sure, they worked a lot and probably were barely ever home. They'd work one job, then go to the other job. They were gone all day, probably, from 7 in the morning until like 11 at night or something crazy. But they did what they had to do so that they could make their ends meet and they could provide for their kids. Obviously, it sucked. It would have sucked for them, but they did what they had to do. They weren't going to just whine about it and be like, oh, we don't make enough money just working here. No, they both got 2 jobs. Not even like the wife was like, well, you can work more so I can be home with the kids. No, they both chipped in. So that's how you do it then if you're struggling and you don't have like a degree or anything that you can try to fall back on. Do what you need to do. The second thing is, I feel like a lot of times that people that are older that are working on a job like that, it's because they've never put effort into their life in the first place. They've never tried to do anything bigger and better. And if they did, they gave up because, it's hard work. It's like this one guy that I knew when I worked at McDonald's again. He was older. He was probably in his, 50s or something at the time. Maybe upper 40s when I knew him. But he was working at McDonald's since like 1987. And prior to that, I hear he had a job at UPS. Now, UPS is a good job. You can make good money there. Very livable wages and all that. But obviously, it's hard work and long hours. I mean, you go in from 9 in the morning and you're working until, if you're a driver, you're working until your truck's empty. So who knows when that could be. Some days you might get out a little bit earlier. Some days it's pretty late. And even then, when it's a little bit earlier, it's still like 6 o'clock. So you're working from 9 to 6. Then if you have any travel, then that makes your day longer. Maybe you got to leave at 8 and you're not home until 7. So it makes for a long day, and it's obviously hard work, running around all day, dealing with the boxes and stuff. But it pays well and all that. Like those give and take. Sure, it's hard work, but you get great benefits. You get pension, good weekly pay, etc. Potential for overtime, like working on the weekends. But anyways, this guy worked there for, I think he said 3 months. And then he was like, oh, it's just too much for me. So he gave up and he said, so then what I did is I came back to town and said, well, the first place that hires me, I'll just stick with it. McDonald's hired him, of course, it's McDonald's. And so he stuck with it. So here he was, 30 years later, working at McDonald's, probably not making too much more than the regular employees were on minimum wage, Back then, minimum wage was like $9 an hour. He was probably making like 14. So your trade-off was, oh man, a pretty good life in exchange for ease. But instead, you just squandered that, making absolutely nothing, struggling because you were too lazy to work a hard job. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of these people. That's why they never leave. There's plenty of pretty good jobs out there. You just got to find them and take them. If you're struggling and it's not working out for you, make the change. Don't expect that minimum wage is supposed to be $35 an hour to meet your needs. Find that $35 an hour. Find the place that either has hard work, but they pay you well for it, or work your way up and earn that $35 an hour. Even if you're at a place like McDonald's or something, get into management. Store managers, they don't make a ton of money, but they make a livable enough salary for sure. And if you work for a good company as well, they'll give you bonuses and everything. When I worked at McDonald's, the owners were pretty decent to the store manager I was with. He was getting bonuses, like a bonus check once a month. Now, I don't know how much it was for. I mean, it could have been something pathetic like $50, or it could have been like a whole nother salary payment. So again, I don't know what his salary was, but even if it was, say, $600, say that's all he was making take home. It probably wasn't, but let's just say it's something kind of low. But if that's what you're used to making, and then you're getting another $600 check that month, that helps out a lot. That's a nice boost to you. Like, oh wow, sweet. We were just paid yesterday, now it's like I'm paid again. So yeah, work your way up. But if you never put that effort in and you just continually, I'm just gonna do registers forever and expect to make $100 an hour, that's a dumb investment in yourself. That's not even an investment in yourself. That's just you being an idiot. And so yeah, that's why you don't make a lot of money. You gotta do something that garners it, not just expect it to fall on. Hey, look, oh, it's raining money. Oh my god. And then the last reason why I'm against minimum wage going way up is probably the most obvious reason that anybody would agree to, would think of, or whatever you want to say. And it's that when minimum wage goes up, that just causes inflation. Obviously, if you're working at a minimum wage place, and say prior the minimum wage was $8 an hour, and now you're saying, oh, you gotta pay everyone $15 an hour. Well, you think McDonald's and all these other places are gonna take a cut to their bottom line? No, they're gonna be like, okay, well, we're gonna have to raise prices. And I mean, that's obviously been happening. Look at McDonald's. Do they have a dollar menu anymore? No. Now their dollar menu is some trash where it's like 2 for $3 on the McDoubles, or 2 for $4. It used to be 2 for $3. Now it's not even that. It's 2 for $4 on McDoubles and McChickens. Like, it's so expensive at McDonald's nowadays that you're better off just eating at a sit-down restaurant. But why did it get that way? Most likely because of this minimum wage getting absolutely insane. And then states like California doing the $20 an hour. A lot of places don't even have employees anymore. Now it's just all automated, because it's like, well, geez, we can't afford to be paying everybody $20 an hour. So it's either we jack our prices sky high, or we get rid of the people and have robots and have, the registers that you ring yourself out at. And so that's what happened. So they increased $20 an hour in California, but now people lost their jobs. So yeah, good thinking, Gavin, you idiot. But it just trickles around everywhere. It's not just stores and restaurants. It's obviously in everything. Now your gas is going to cost more. Now this costs more. Now that costs more, because minimum wage went up. And oh, you're making more money. No, you're not. You're staying at the same level. You were here and everything costed this. Now you're here, but now everything costs this. If anything, now everything actually costs this. So you might make more on paper, but you're actually struggling more because everything is costing way more to make back what they would have lost by paying you this much more. So in a way, minimum wage being really low is actually better for everyone in the long run. Especially if we go back to point 2 and you put effort into yourself. Now you get a good job, you're making $30 an hour. That's gonna matter. If minimum wage is $8 an hour and you're making 30, that's huge. That's like 3.5 times, almost 4 times actually. It's like 3 3/4 times what minimum wage is. So now you're living large. But if minimum wage in California is $20 an hour and you're making 30, you're not living large. You're doing 50% better than the average person. That's terrible. And then if you do put the effort into yourself and get one of those better jobs, then it just feels even better. You're like, oh my God, I remember working those minimum wage jobs that sucked, and now look where I'm at. It's like me. I've worked minimum wage jobs since I was 14. I worked them literally for 20 years, from 14 until a couple of years ago. 20 years. It started out as my regular job when I was in high school and college, and then it became a side hustle when I graduated college. And yeah, it was what I needed to do, make that extra money. But when I did get my regular job, minimum wage was kind of low. I think it was like $9.10 an hour, and my regular job was paying me $26.50 an hour. So it felt cool. It was like, wow, I'm making a lot more than minimum. I'm making 3 times as much. Like, I was comparing to myself. I was like, when I work at night, I'm making 3 times less than I make as my day self. But now it's almost insulting. Minimum wage is pushing $16.50 an hour. I don't make 25 whatever anymore. I obviously make more, but say I still did. That's only $9 more. Like, now the disparity's way off. That's terrible. And now it just feels like, what did I go to college for? If it was still, if I was still making that much, I feel like, what did I go to college for? The whole point was to make my life better, and it's barely better. If anything, it doesn't even matter because I have all this debt I gotta pay now. For $9 more an hour? I could have just worked 2 minimum wage jobs and called it a day. So yeah, increasing the minimum wage is really dumb. And the other thing too, speaking of the federal minimum wage, you know how many employees actually are on legit federal minimum wage? because every state has its own minimum wage as well. Federal is just like a guideline, like you can't go below that. So you know how many are on there? It's like 1 million employees. Sure, that's not nothing, but in the grand scheme of the population, what's our population? 330 million, and 1 million of those is at the federal minimum wage level. That means 229 million people are above the federal minimum wage. So here we are, Kamala trying to pitch, well, we gotta increase the federal minimum wage for a very slim percentage of the individuals, which chances are, if they're on federal minimum wage, I don't really know, I didn't look into it this much, but those states might be cheaper to live in themselves, which means they're not struggling proportionally as bad as you'd think. You know, if you're comparing to California, yeah, they're struggling, but if their state is kind of cheaper, and that's why that state goes by the federal minimum wage, then they're probably doing proportionately the same as everyone else. It's not like they're doing any worse just because they make less. Yeah, they make less, but everything is less in that state versus like a California where gas is $10 a gallon. You know what I mean? And again, though, it's only 1 million people, so you're trying to pander to 1 million people. Most likely, at least 50% of that is kids who aren't even gonna vote for you because they can't, because they're underage. Like, get real, lady. But yeah, so anyways, that's kind of my thoughts on increasing the minimum wage. I feel like people should strive to work for more, not just expect it to be handed to them. Not just expect, oh, I'm gonna walk into my job at, doing cash registers at Walmart, I'm gonna make $35 an hour. Like, that's not how it works. You can make $35 an hour at Walmart, but that requires you to get into management. That requires you to strive to be a assistant manager, maybe make it to store manager, maybe even beyond that. Then you can make your money. Don't just settle for, oh, I'm an overnight stock person, I should be making $25 an hour. No, you shouldn't. Your job is easily replaceable. Anybody can come in and learn how to put stuff on a shelf. It's not that hard, you know? So, yeah. Basically, I guess that's all I got. And it's something I've been thinking about for a long time. And also, now that Kamala's been talking about it again, it's something that's kind of reignited. And I just think it's a really dumb idea. And, yeah. So that's all I got. Thanks for checking this out. Until next time, I said see ya.